Hi, my name is Wendy Mueller-Seib, and I am the director of the Summit Youth Academy at Southwestern College. The Summit is one of 92 high school youth theology initiatives funded by the Lilly Endowment. Eli Lilly created an endowment years and years ago to help fund young people as they grow in their faith. And so Southwestern received a grant 3 years ago funded by Lilly to help get started on the Summit Youth Academy. And the reason I think that the Summit adds something unique to the experiences we offer young people in the life of the church is that there are just so few places in the church where a high school student who is going into their junior or senior year, they're at the cusp of thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to choose a career path? And what we do is offer a full week for young people to ask those kinds of questions, surrounded by faithful Christian people, in a space where we call it a liminal space. You know, it's one of the spaces on earth where the space between heaven and earth is really thin, and the voice of God is maybe more clear than in our everyday world, where we're going through the motions of going to practice and going to school and going to our jobs and dealing with family conflicts and relational issues and all of the everyday things that a high school student has to think about. We just create a week to set aside where young people can have fun and enjoy being together, and also have really tough questions of their faith answered while discerning, what is it that God is saying to me right now, and how is God inviting me to participate in the work that God is already doing.
The week was filled with not only the experiences of camp, games, getting to know new people, but it was a focused time of encouraging people to think about God's work in our lives and calling, and through that to be able to hear a lot of different testimonies from people of a lot of different ages about their experience of God moving them and calling them in their lives. So anytime I think we can get together and we can celebrate, we can discover new people, new personalities, and hear new testimonies of the way that God works, I think it's amazing, which is what the week was.
I think I would describe the week as an incredibly worshipful experience. We had so much time to connect with other people that are just doing incredible work for God, and we had so much worship integrated into the plan of the week, and it was just an incredible space to see God move.
I think during the week of the summit, we tried to do disciplines that help us hear God's voice with more clarity. We worship together. We have moments of fellowship. We have small groups that we use to conversate and kind of discern and reflect on what God is calling us during the week. And so basically during the whole week, all we do is try to listen to God's voice and discern what our calling is. Not only if He is calling us to ministry, but what our calling outside the church and inside our communities is.
Filling and inspiring, I mean, that's two words, but like it's when you're around all those other people who like love God and like really are committed to giving their lives to Christ, like it just like fills you up, because like a lot of times when you're out there in the world, whether that's in your school or at your job or whatever it is, like it can be hard, because like sometimes you feel like you're always fighting an uphill battle because you might be the only one trying to stay faithful, but when you're here, you're just like surrounded by people who will give anything to follow Jesus Christ, and then that leaves you just feeling inspired. You're like, hey, I know I'm not alone out there. So when you go back to the world, you're like, it gives you a new sense of purpose and commitment in your faith.
I think it was brilliant. It was fulfilling. It was full of peace and joy. and it was also really needed in the midst of the summer and the start of the year.
Oh, the week is so good. It's just there's really nothing quite like getting a bunch of students and faculty and staff together who are really like-minded, who are seeking the same thing, seeking to find God in our everyday lives, seeking to find where God is calling us, what He's calling us to, and to do that in community is such an important aspect of it. It's so fundamental to the Wesleyan tradition. It's very historic Methodist, seeking God and the presence of God in the context of small groups, bands, and classes. And it's also consistent with ancient Christianity, which always has seen itself as a people searching after God. And so the week is wonderful for that, and it's also wonderful for just meeting new people and getting closer to people you already know. Yeah, I love it. I look forward to it every year.
So throughout the week, I saw God move definitely in the Summit disciples because of the questions that they asked and just getting to watch them experience the Summit for the first or second time. And I also got to really see God in the other Summit guides, as well as all of the adults that were there, choosing to spend their time to help these high school kids get to know Christ more.
I think that I kind of experienced God in like a different way than I had before. I really felt His presence while I was there through everyone that was around me, and I kind of experienced a calling for me, like into following a path that I've always been interested in, but also kind of like sharing my story through like going into journalism.
I experienced God a lot through worship services. I connect with God mainly through music, and a lot of testimonies really touched me that week, and I was able to see that other people were going through things that weren't very easy, and it opened my eyes to see that other people go through bad things too.
Well, I felt that I should give out to people more, and I recently went to Zimbabwe by myself in 2017 and gave the children like towels and toothpaste, and I just wanted to be in the presence with them.
That was a very nice time because I found out things about myself and about other people that I didn't know. Like I knew and I learned like different ways of communicating with God and how like see God in other people, like their abilities, their gifts, how they use those gifts to serve the community and in that way serving God too.
I feel like during some of the lectures, I understood that calling, it's not as we always imagine. It's not like God calls you into a profession and then you are in your profession forever. He basically calls us all to the same thing, to be their beloved children. And that is how I heard God's voice. I understood that my primary vocation, what God calls me to do first and foremost, is to be His daughter and to live and serve Him and do things for His kingdom.
I saw God moving through a lot of other people's lives through the week, and sometimes it's hard to see God moving through your own, just being so caught up in it, but I got to make a lot of really great friends, and I think through some of these connections that I made, I was able to see God's glory, and just through being inspired to take what I learned at the summit and bring it back, I think that that's definitely something that God played a big role in.
I have seen God moving in the summit in the lives of students that I interact with. So several of them I'll meet on the first night or the first day, and to really see kind of an uncertainty, an unsureness of what they've gotten themselves into. Maybe they've they've signed up for primarily a social thing, and then many of these same students I see just really develop even just in the week, and the tightness of the relationships, the seriousness with which they're taking some of the academic experiences, and the fervency with which they're pursuing discipleship. So I'd say I see just in that week the Spirit moving clearly in the classes and in the worship services, and even in the recreational time.
Well, so you see these people who are like random, like they put us all together random, and basically we didn't fit like our aspects as people, as our ability of people. We were not similar, but still you could see God acting in every single life and every single one of them. Didn't matter what. Like, we might have had super different backgrounds and where we're from and stuff like that, and still you could see the love of God every time they talk about Him.
I think I saw a lot of people get a new sense of purpose. I think that was kind of the biggest thing. I think there were a lot of Summit guides and Summit disciples and even adults that came, and like, I don't want to say they were in low points in their ministry, but they were kind of in turning points. And like, after this, like, to hear the stories of like some of the things that the Summit disciples wanted to do when they like got back to their home churches and to their schools, like, I saw God moving in that, seeing God like propel people into like the next stage of their faith, to where it wasn't just about like God in their life, but how was God like calling them to share their faith with other people and be a force to grow the kingdom in their home churches and home communities.
I saw God moving everywhere, from the start of the morning in our prayer to our class meeting at night. You know, we had some incredible worship experiences that it was impossible to not see God move in. It's just in everything, in the way that people treated each other, in the things that we learned from the professors that were there, in the things we learned about ourselves from programs like the one that Peter Camerano ran for us, in the way that we worshiped, in the way that we prayed. It was everywhere, and it was just an overwhelming presence of God.
One of the fun aspects of this summit is watching young people from just different places across Kansas, from Nebraska, Oklahoma, come together and realize they're not the only young person in their church that's asking some of these questions. One of the Bible professors we had one year said, "Man, I wish my college students would show up to class as enthusiastic and excited to learn about the Bible as the Summit disciples show up to my class." And that was refreshing, not only for the Summit disciples to have a safe space to really ask some hard questions with a really smart, knowledgeable professor, but also for the professor to be energized about why she teaches Bible and why it matters in the lives of young people. And so it's been fun to see how it has energized not only young people in their faith, but also those of us who are called to work with young people to be energized in the work that we do. And we've had pastors come, serve as covenant pastors, who've walked away saying, "Wow, I really experienced God this week, and it has given me energy and excitement to go back and serve my congregation." You know, we really work, one of the things we really want to do is we want to partner with local churches. So our desire and our belief is not that we offer something that is standalone that only we can do, but we see ourselves in partnership with local churches and youth ministries that have already planted seeds and watered seeds, and we're just coming along to continue helping to nurture that calling that's already active and alive in young people, because we're just absolutely convinced that God is on the move and God is calling young people today, and we want to be a place that is known for nurturing the call, for cultivating the call, and for partnering with parents, youth pastors, and local churches as we together nurture young people to find their calling in order that we can spread the good news of the gospel.
So no anxieties with Erin going to Summit. He's a phenomenal young person already, and so I was excited because the opportunity was a great match for where he is in his faith and where he is in his communication process and being able to share and witness to others. So I felt really excited to send him. He enjoyed being in a community where his already strong faith was so welcome for conversation. One of the things he expressed was, I've always had great confidence in my faith, but being in this community, everyone else was eager and ready to share. So I could be even more open and excited about what's going on with God, with Jesus, with myself as a disciple.
I think the changes that are most noticeable were probably just our ability to talk about our relationship with God and Christ. It's easier to have conversations about prayer and about reading our Bibles and just the different practices of our faith. I don't know, I think a lot of the discussions we've had have been easier because she now has a vocabulary, I think, that we can share on not only her understanding of her faith, but of herself.
Before the summit, we definitely talked about things happening in church, but then afterwards we occasionally brought up subjects that weren't actively being talked about during service. And that's one of the changes.
I'd definitely say you're a deep thinker, and we've always had really, really great conversations. But there were some very specific opportunities at Summit. Erin took a class with Scott Kisker. I actually attended it one day, and it was wonderful. The subjects that were addressed and that he welcomed from students were varied. Some of them might be things that people would kind of skirt around right now, but we just dove in and enjoyed that. And I know that Erin's brought up multiple ideas from that particular class that we've enjoyed talking about since.
I'm able to talk to her more deeply about my faith and how I pray and when I read, and just kind of whatever ideas I have about my faith or about theology itself, I can always talk to her about it, and it's more helpful now than it was before. I can understand it better.
I agree. I think the summit was kind of a really good example of how it takes a village. We've heard that a lot, but it is, because you can raise your children in the church, and they grew up going to vacation Bible school and a church camp in the summer like Camp Horizon or something, but it takes a lot of voices, not just the voice of your mom or dad, to kind of hear how God has worked and continues to work. And so now that she's maturing and growing and really was able to kind of dive in deep at the summit, that's led to some really good conversations and some good understanding. And I too don't feel like I'm at a place anymore where I'm like, no, this is really what we believe, but I want you to believe it for yourself, not just because I tell you this. So I think this is kind of like a first step into her really taking hold of her faith on her own and not just being passed on from her parents.
Yeah, and I think that not only experiencing it from other people, but also having my own individual connection with God, having my own God moment and being able to understand that was really impactful for me, for my life, for my faith, and for my relationships with others. So it's not just the village, it's also you individually being able to connect with something greater.
So worship, we really
tried doing different things. So it's not just a normal worship service that you would find at a church. We do some contemporary aspects, and we mix a lot of contemporary and traditional aspects together and change up different things. We do a lot of different fun things through worship.
The worship time and the prayer time was incredible. I always got something new out of it each and every day. And the prayer time, it showed me a new way of praying and taking longer to pray and being more intentional about prayer. And because really before that I didn't really know how to sit down and pray really good, but this helped me become more intentional and open about my prayers.
I really enjoyed the worship, especially coming from a smaller church where we don't have a lot of youth, and it's a lot more traditional, because it was just really cool to be able to sing contemporary worship songs, even some traditional worship songs with a bunch of other youth from across the state. And then with noonday prayer, I'm not usually a big reflection and prayer kind of person, but what I really enjoyed about noonday prayer was all of the different languages that the noonday prayer was held in, and some of the different songs from different cultures that we got to sing.
I thought the worship and prayer time experiences, they were really good. Like, they had prayer stations, which is something I had never really done before, so it was pretty new to me. And the worship was different from my traditional worship at my normal church, but I really liked it. It was just a new way to feel God's presence in a different experience that I hadn't had before.
The worship experience that I had at the summit was really refreshing and needed in the middle of the summer. It's really different every day, and they include a lot of different cultures, which I thought was really, really cool, because God is experienced all throughout the world, not just here.
Worship was really effective, and while they weren't like 3-hour sermons or anything, like, that was part of the good part, that you could so quickly get in the mood for it and enjoy every bit of it without having to spend a lot of time preparing or leaving the area.
One of the things I absolutely love about the summit is our worship. Our worship in the evening, it is lively, it is powerful, it is spirit-filled, it is intentionally, we seek to exalt the person of Jesus Christ. We have amazing musicians that help lead us in music. We have testimonies from college summit guides, and even from some of our summit disciples will share in testimony, and then vibrant, lively preaching from covenant pastors that come. Some of the professors take time to preach, and we have seen God move in our midst in a variety of ways over the last 2 years through our worship, and know that will be a vital aspect of our ministry for years to come.
The favorite part of the week had to be the worship times. To have someone that you know a little bit about their story, who comes from the Congo, who speaks and prays in French. I was able to step into their experience a lot more during the worship times. Also with this understanding, this is God's work in this person's life, along with God's work in my life. And so when we sing, "Great Are You, Lord," it's so much richer in the context of story.
Worship was great. I mean, anytime you're with a group of passionate believers worshiping, it's like you can feel the Holy Spirit moving in that for sure. But then also, we had a pastor from Kentucky come and lead prayer, and that was really powerful. Like, I mean, he just prayed his heart out to God every single time he prayed. And I think that was what got me the most every time we worship, was just to see this man go up there and like empty himself to the Lord. And like, I think that's how I want to pray. And so that was by far my favorite part of the worship.
The worship just was very genuine and authentic, and it was so inspiring to see so many young people really, truly worshiping God with enthusiasm and with just pouring out their hearts. That was so powerful. I know a lot of the times the local church that our kids grow up in, we can't necessarily tailor fit our worship just to speak to their hearts, but this was a time where it did at the summit. And I know for my daughter, Chloe, she really came out of this experience feeling like, oh, she really connected with God in worship, and she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by a lot of kids her age, different backgrounds or different experiences, but they all kind of came together worshiping the same God with just enthusiasm and passion, and that was really powerful and really cool to see as a parent.
Yourself, find your calling, and find the person that God wants you to be and who He has created you to be, and it really is an awesome place that helps you to accept yourself.
I would recommend the summit because you get to know people here on campus, us college students, and the professors, but you also get to know people your age who are exploring God as a calling, and not in your profession, but as a calling in their life to follow God.
I've met one of my best friends. I met her through the summit, and I talk to her every day, and she's one of my best friends. So I think it's a really good place for young Christians to find other people who are really rooted in their faith, and it will help you develop a better faith and a better trust in Christ.
It's not just a summer camp. You can learn things about your faith that you never knew before. You'll have experiences that you won't get anywhere else, and you will make a lot of friends along the way.
Because why not? I mean, you have the opportunity to meet great people, and everyone who is willing to help, to listen, to support you a whole week. That God's talking to you. I don't see why not.
I would really recommend the summit to someone if they really want to take some next steps on their own in their faith journey. Quite frankly, there's not many other opportunities like this. Mission trips are great, but this is kind of an opportunity for you to focus on yourself and your own personal relationship with God, and that can really help you find even more service opportunities back in your home church. So as far as taking a week to really improve your relationship with God, I don't know that there's any better way than going to the summit.
I would recommend the summit to other people because it's such a unique opportunity, and there's so much knowledge and heart that goes into the preparation for it, as well as prayer too. And I think that it could be really formative to how high school kids think about God and think about their calling.
You know, I think you need to be willing to step out in faith and realize that these don't have to be like your all-star students that are like at the top of the tier of commitment in the life of your church, and that it's a place where students, if they love Jesus, they can find a place to grow and learn and develop their faith deeper through their experience at the summit.
I'd recommend it to anyone that has any interest in learning or in sharing anything about their faith. And I think that it's a good experience for any kid because it'll help you think about what more you can do and how God acts through everyone.
The summit is like a great opportunity to make new friendships that come literally straight from God, and you get to do and experience a lot of worship, and you get to see the Spirit working through other people. You may cry, but that's okay, because nobody will judge you.
I would recommend the summit for anyone who is looking for guidance or some kind of orientation of what God is wanting them to do or is calling them to be. I would recommend the summit because there's a lot of people that are with you during the week that are just amazing people. They are mentors. They are also students who just put so much effort and time into you and your spiritual formation that it's amazing. I don't think you can find that somewhere else outside of the Summit. Hopefully you will, but I think the Summit is a perfect place to find people that will pour into you and into your faith.
I would recommend the Summit because I think it's a great opportunity to just grow in your faith, first of all, have some fellowship with other Christians. It's a good opportunity to get out of your comfort zone, and it's just refreshing and fulfilling and awesome.
First of all, learn new stuff. Most of the people who come for the first time, I think they're like, my parents made me come here. But later on, you get to realize that it's worth it. Like, the time you're investing on it and the energy, I mean, it's kind of tired sometimes, but it's worth it. Like, you'll learn how to, like, communicate with God, learn new things about yourself, you'll, like, get inner peace that sometimes you're lacking.
I mean, come join us next year. Don't hesitate. And it's just, I think I would invite you, whether you think you're called to ministry or not. It's an incredible way to learn how to hear God's voice and to make connections with people that are just incredible followers of God and have great places of ministry that need to be learned about.
I would recommend the Summit because I don't think we have a lot of opportunities in our church and many churches that really focus on this age group and focus not simply on discipleship, as important as that is, but also on discipleship for the purpose of understanding what our place is in the economy of God, by which I mean the calling of God. We all have a place and a role to play in God's work in spreading the gospel and bringing the nations to Him. And sometimes we don't recognize that or hear that calling until much later in life. And I think that the Summit helps students at a relatively young age to really begin asking these questions, seeing the places where God is calling them. And so it really sets students on a trajectory of finding this placement much earlier, and therefore if we're in the place where God is calling us, we're going to have a much more fulfilling life, as well as being so important to the kingdom of God.
If you're serious about your faith as a junior and senior in high school, like, I know that can be hard. I mean, it can be isolating and it can be confusing, and the Summit is just so great because it gives an opportunity for high schoolers like that just to see that they're not alone, and that there are faithful juniors and seniors in high school all over the place, and that it just it gives you a sense of purpose and inspiration that, like, what we're doing is for a reason, and, like, God is at work even when we can't see it. So I guess I just would strongly recommend to any, like, junior and senior in high school who's, like, really feeling like they want to go deeper in their faith and kind of feel alone in that struggle, that, like, the Summit is the place for you.
If you're currently a high school sophomore or junior and you are wondering what God's purpose is for your life, or you just want space to hear God's voice, we invite you to join us at Southwestern College the last week of July for the Summit Youth Academy.